I was at home, and the air felt heavy with an unspoken tension that made every breath feel difficult. The house, usually so quiet and peaceful, now felt like a cage, trapping me with my own secrets. My husband was just in the next room, his voice muffled as he went about his business, completely unaware of what was unfolding just a few feet away. Every sound seemed amplified, the ticking of the clock, the soft creak of the floorboards, and with each passing second, my heart raced faster. I walked toward the bathroom, my footsteps slow and deliberate, trying to calm my nerves. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears as I pushed the door open. There, in the shadows, stood my ex-boyfriend, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made me shiver. The very sight of him sent a wave of conflicting emotions crashing over me: desire, guilt, excitement, fear, each one more powerful than the last. For a moment, we just stood there, the air between us thick with tension. The forbidden nature of what we were about to do sent a shiver down my spine. This wasn't just a reunion, it was a reckless, dangerous choice that could destroy everything I had worked so hard to build. But the allure of his touch, the memories of what we once shared, made it impossible to turn back. As I stepped closer to him, every step felt like an eternity. The thought of being caught made my heart race even more. We were hidden away in this small, quiet room, yet it felt like the world was watching us. Every sound, every movement seemed amplified, and the fear of discovery only fueled the fire between us. What we were doing was wrong, but in that moment, all that mattered was the rush, the passion that could unravel everything in the blink of an eye. My name is Alice, and for the past 4 years, I've been married to Rufus, a man who many would describe as perfect. He's the kind of man everyone dreams of: a good provider, loyal, and loving in ways that make you feel secure and cared for. When we met, it felt like fate had finally brought me to where I was always meant to be. But before I found him, there was someone else, someone I thought I would spend my life with. I had been in a serious relationship with my former boyfriend for 5 years. We were young, full of hope, and believed our love would carry us through anything. We shared dreams of a future together, of a home, a family, and a life full of laughter. But somewhere along the way, things changed. The connection we once had started to fade, and no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't fix the growing distance between us. It wasn't dramatic or sudden, it was just the quiet realization that we weren't meant to be. We parted ways, each of us moving on with a sense of sadness and what could have been, but with no real regrets. The memory of that time still lingers, sometimes unexpectedly creeping into my thoughts. There were moments when I wondered if I made the right decision. Could I have worked harder to make it work with him? But now, as I look at Rufus, I know I've found my place. Yet, sometimes, I can't help but wonder what might have happened if I had stayed with my first love. Would my life have turned out differently? Would I have been as happy, or would I have always wondered about the path I didn't take? A few months passed, and life began to move forward, as it always does. I focused on healing, on rediscovering myself after the end of my previous relationship. I wasn't looking for love, at least, not in the way I had before. But fate has a funny way of surprising us when we least expect it. One day, I met Rufus. It was a casual encounter at a friend's gathering, nothing extraordinary at first glance. But something about him caught my attention. Maybe it was the warmth in his smile, the way he spoke with kindness and confidence, or the gentle way he seemed to understand the things I didn't say. Whatever it was, I felt an instant connection, something that drew me to him in a way I couldn't ignore. At first, we were just friends, getting to know each other little by little. Our conversations were easy, filled with laughter and shared interests. We spent more time together, and each moment felt like it was building toward something more. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, I found myself falling for him. There was no dramatic confession, no whirlwind romance, just a quiet, steady feeling that grew stronger with each passing day. It was as though I had been waiting for him, though I didn't know it until he showed up. And just like that, love found me again, sneaking into my life when I least expected it. This time, it felt different, not the fiery, all-consuming passion of my youth, but something steadier, deeper, and infinitely more genuine. With Rufus, there was no need to pretend, no need to hide parts of myself for fear of being judged. He saw me for who I truly was: flaws, scars, and chose to love me anyway. With him, I didn't have to carry the weight of my past. The mistakes I had made, the regrets that sometimes kept me awake at night, seemed to dissolve in his presence. Rufus didn't just accept those parts of me, he embraced them, as if they were threads woven into the fabric of who I had become. With every kind word, every gentle touch, he reminded me that I was worthy of love, not in spite of my imperfections, but because of them. What we had wasn't built on fleeting infatuation or the fear of being alone. It wasn't born out of desperation or a need to fill a void. No, what we had was real, a connection rooted in mutual respect and a genuine desire to build a life together. We weren't just two people in love, we were partners, navigating life side by side, lifting each other up when the world felt heavy. Rufus brought a light into my life that I hadn't realized I was missing. He filled the empty spaces in my heart with laughter, trust, and a quiet kind of joy that made me feel whole again. It wasn't the kind of love that demanded grand gestures or constant validation. It was simple, steady, and true, a love that felt like coming home. You see, even after all these years, I still kept in touch with my former boyfriend. It wasn't supposed to mean anything, we would exchange a few polite messages here and there, catching up on life as old friends do. At least, that's what I told myself. But deep down, I knew there was more to it. There was still a spark, a quiet reminder of what we once shared, buried beneath the surface but never entirely gone. Then, one day, he reached out with an offer that caught me off guard. It started innocently enough, a casual message, the kind you'd expect from someone trying to rekindle an old friendship. At first, I didn't take it seriously. I laughed it off, dismissing his words as a playful joke, something harmless. But as the days turned into weeks, his words began to linger in my mind, refusing to fade. There was something beneath the surface of his messages, something deeper, more intentional. He wasn't just reaching out to say hello or to reminisce about the past. No, his intentions went far beyond that. He wanted to reconnect, but not in the way I had assumed. What he wanted was more, so much more. Slowly, his words became bolder, more direct, until there was no mistaking his desires. He wasn't asking for friendship, he was asking for a piece of me I had no right to give. He demanded my body, my heart, a part of me that no longer belonged to him, a part that was now tied to my husband, the man I had vowed to honor and cherish. The audacity of his request should have angered me, should have made me cut off contact immediately. But instead, I found myself frozen, caught between disbelief and a dangerous curiosity. His words had awakened something I didn't want to acknowledge, a part of me I thought I had buried long ago. It was a reckless, selfish part, whispering that no one would ever know, that it was just one moment, one secret. And as much as I tried to push those thoughts away, they lingered, growing louder with each passing day. I knew it was wrong, terribly, undeniably wrong, but a part of me couldn't stop thinking about it. I tried to resist, to remind myself of the vows I had made, to tell myself over and over that it was wrong. But his persistence was relentless, chipping away at my defenses bit by bit. He had a way of speaking to the part of me I thought I had left behind, the part that remembered who I used to be before my life changed. He reminded me of the laughter we once shared, the dreams we had built together, and the life we almost lived. But deep down, I knew it wasn't love that drew me back to him. It was temptation, pure and undeniable. It was the thrill of the forbidden, the danger of stepping into a world I had no business revisiting. It was a game I knew I shouldn't play, but despite my better judgment, I found myself giving in. And so, after weeks of his persistence, I agreed. I told myself it would be just this once, a fleeting moment I could lock away and never revisit. I invited him over one afternoon when I knew my husband wouldn't be around. My heart raced with guilt and anticipation as I prepared for what I knew was a mistake. When he arrived, the air was thick with tension. Every glance, every whispered word felt heavier than it should. As we stood in the shadow of my choices, I couldn't ignore the gnawing guilt that sat in the pit of my stomach. Yet, I pushed it aside, allowing the moment to consume me. But just as we were about to cross the line, I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. My heart stopped. Panic surged through me as I realized my husband was home far earlier than I had expected. Time seemed to slow as I scrambled to hide my ex-boyfriend, shoving him into the bathroom and shutting the door. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing the fear of being caught. I barely had time to collect myself before my husband walked through the door, oblivious to the chaos that had unfolded just moments before. I forced a smile, praying that he wouldn't notice the tension in my voice or the nervousness in my movements. Somehow, I managed to keep my secret hidden, at least for now. But as I stood there, pretending everything was fine, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking a dangerous line, one that could crumble my entire world at any moment. And so, there I was, standing in the bathroom, a place that had always been mundane and unremarkable, now turned into the stage for my betrayal. My mind was a battlefield of emotions, each one louder than the last. On one side was my husband, the man who loved me with a purity and devotion I sometimes felt I didn't deserve. He was just a few steps away, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing behind the closed door. On the other side was the temptation I had let into my life, the pull of something forbidden, dangerous, and utterly intoxicating. My heart raced, pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Each beat echoed the guilt that clawed at my conscience, reminding me of everything I was risking. My marriage. My home. My husband's trust. They hung over me like fragile glass, ready to shatter with one wrong move. Yet, despite the weight of it all, another part of me, a darker, more reckless part, thrived on the adrenaline coursing through my veins. The thrill of doing something so utterly forbidden was like a fire burning through my veins, leaving no room for reason or hesitation. I hated that part of me, but I couldn't deny it was there, whispering that I deserved this moment, that no one would ever know, and that life was too short to live without a taste of the forbidden. It was a voice I didn't recognize, and yet it felt so familiar, as if it had been waiting all this time for a moment like this. I stood frozen for what felt like an eternity, caught between two worlds that could never coexist. On one side was the life I had built with my husband, full of love, comfort, and security. On the other was this moment of passion and recklessness that could destroy it all. I wanted to turn back, to stop myself before it was too late, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. My mind screamed for me to make a choice, but my body had already made it for me. As the moments ticked by, I knew this decision could change everything. It was a choice that could unravel the life I had worked so hard to build. And yet, in that moment, standing in the shadow of my guilt and desire, I couldn't bring myself to walk away. I walked into the house, my heart racing with a mix of guilt and excitement. My husband was in the sitting room, his focus entirely on the television. He greeted me with a warm smile, the kind that had always made me feel safe and loved. I smiled back, but inside, a storm of emotions churned. "I brought you some food," I said, setting the plate down on the table in front of him. He thanked me, completely unaware of the turmoil hidden beneath my calm exterior. I told him I needed to use the bathroom, excusing myself with a casual tone, praying he wouldn't notice the nervous edge in my voice. As I stepped into the bathroom, my ex was already waiting, his eyes lighting up the moment he saw me. The thrill of what we were about to do washed over me, pushing aside any lingering doubts. We moved quickly, quietly, caught up in a reckless moment of passion. The fear of being caught made every second more intense, every whisper more electric. For those stolen moments, I let myself be consumed by the forbidden. The excitement, the danger, it was all intoxicating. I hated that I enjoyed it, hated how easy it was to ignore the reality just outside the door. But in that moment, nothing else mattered. When it was over, I took a deep breath, steadying myself. My heart was still pounding as I carefully opened the door and peeked out, making sure the coast was clear. My husband was still in the sitting room, completely oblivious. Quietly, I led my ex to the back door, moving with the precision of someone walking a tightrope over disaster. The adrenaline surged through me, coursing through my veins like a raging river, as I watched him slip out of the house unnoticed. My hands trembled slightly, and my heart hammered in my chest, threatening to betray me with its loud rhythm. But amidst the chaos of my emotions, there was an undeniable, twisted sense of satisfaction. Somehow, I had pulled it off. No one knew. No one had seen. Life, at least on the surface, would carry on as if nothing had happened. I lingered for a moment by the door, steadying my breath and trying to calm the storm within me. My mind raced, replaying every moment, every step I had taken to ensure we wouldn't get caught. Yet, beneath the exhilaration, there was a gnawing sense of unease, a faint whisper in the back of my mind that warned this was only the beginning of a dangerous spiral. I forced myself to return to the sitting room, smoothing my expression into a mask of calm. My husband was exactly where I had left him, his attention on the television, unaware of the betrayal that had unfolded just moments before. I sat down beside him, my movements deliberate, careful not to reveal the chaos I was hiding. He glanced at me, his eyes filled with the same warmth and trust one had always known. "Everything okay?" he asked casually, his voice steady and full of love. "Of course," I replied, managing to keep my voice even, my secret buried deep beneath layers of composure. I smiled, though the effort felt immense, as if the weight of my actions was pressing down on me, threatening to expose the truth. But inside, the guilt began to stir, growing louder with every passing second. I couldn't shake the feeling that this game I was playing, this reckless, dangerous game, was a fire I couldn't contain. I had crossed a line, one I knew I could never uncross, and while I had escaped this time, I couldn't ignore the lingering fear that it was only a matter of time before everything unraveled.